I would like to invite you to come on a journey and experience a remarkable story of a young man, his caring older sister, and a city with a heart.
On December 18, 1967, while serving in Vietnam, Joe Artavia, a young man concerned about the lack of mail the members of his troop were receiving, wrote to his sister, requesting that she work towards getting his city to adopt his unit.
Dear Linda, hi there. First off, there is something I would like you to do for me. You see, back in the States, towns and cities adopt military companies over here. Now, what I was wondering is if you could talk to someone in San Mateo or San Francisco and fix it so one of them would adopt our company. You see, by having a town or city adopt us, it brings the morale of the guys up as high as the clouds.
On March 4, 1968, San Mateo adopted the Screaming Eagles A Company, ABU, of the 1st of the 327th Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division. The purpose was to improve morale among the fighting troops with messages of love and support from home. San Mateo's adoption of the unit was a bold move at a time when the general public was less than supportive of the U.S. action in Vietnam. But to the men of the 327th, it meant everything. Unfortunately, Sergeant Joe never got to see the fruits of his effort. Only 20 days after the 327th 1st Brigade became the official adopted sons of San Mateo, Sergeant Joe Artavia was killed in action. Tragically, Joe, who was just 19, was killed in a firefight trying to aid a fallen trooper.
March of 1968 turned out to be a particularly tough month for the unit. When I say unit, I mean the company and the battalion and the brigade as well. Probably as tough as a month as the unit had in the entire term of the war. We started off in early March with 140 men approximately. In the end of the month, there were 50-something men left in the unit. So we had about 60% casualties in that month. We had been locked in engagement with an enemy company for about 3 days, and this was our final assault on the 24th, and it occurred around noon. Sergeant Artavia was part of our point element, and he was in the process of helping a fallen comrade. He was killed around noon on March 24th.
A military car drove up to tell me that Joe had been killed in action. That was a difficult period for me to realize that I had just come from a women's group that had just packed packages for Joe and his group and told me that this one was for Joe, and I came to hear that. So kind of set me back for a period until the reporter from the Times, Vera Graham, called me in to get Joe's picture that was in the paper, first adopted son killed in action. She sat me down to tell me that this is what your brother would want, Linda. And from that point on, I took an about face. And when I mean about face, I went out to the community and talked to schools and kids. And the support from just everyone, our civic leaders, we started sending packages and care packages and everything.
When we started getting letters and packages from citizens in San Mateo, really the letters were more important. They were just more personal. Also, a lot of the care packages that came in were too big to be sent out in the field. For the men, it brought them home.
I think on the 10th day, I remember sitting in the bottom of a bomb crater, and I got a call from the rear area that you were coming in, and I had to catch a chopper back to Camp Eagle. They get cleaned up and pick you up 2 days later in Saigon.
I would talk to the soldiers at night on the radio, and I would have a code name, and just as they were hacking their way through the jungle to get to me, it would take them a few days. But in between that time, you had me on fire bases, you had me serving lunch, and then you took me to hospitals where we met, MASH units, which were the hospitals, and where I would talk to our wounded soldiers.
As you know, the city of San Mateo, with you carrying the city seal on those nickel-plated medallions, you brought those with you and greeting cards, and those would go to the men, personalized, all the men that had their name on the back of the medallions. And you may not realize this, but the company only spent 9 days in the rear area the whole year I was there in 1968. So really, because of you, with the 2 or 3 days that they came in because of you, that accounted for 1/3 of the time that they weren't in that jungle for the whole year.
So when I walked out there and faced them, I couldn't get over how young they all looked. They were like 19, 20-year-old kids. As I called their name up, and they gave them the Christmas card from the mayor and the city, and then the medallion, they all had smiles and thanked me. And I felt, for the first time, very close to them, as if I was the oldest sister, like I was with my brother, for all of them. So that was a real moment in my life when I felt a change.
I was privileged to be the commander of A Company and lead you guys through the city of San Mateo. You know, I'll be honest, when we were over at Oakland and trying to march, I was scared to death because it was like we all had 2 left feet. But as soon as we took off, I don't know, something clicked, and you guys performed miracles.
Well, when we got back, we were very impressed that the people of San Mateo, Linda and Steve, all the people who assisted them, had done what they had done starting back in '68. It was the only place we'd ever heard of in America who supported the troops regardless of how they felt about what was going on politically. We have wonderful memories marching down through San Mateo itself, turning into the park, having the opportunity to give away as much gear as we possibly could without having to get an Article 15 for it was wonderful. And those of us who still talk every now and then will never forget how warmly we were greeted, how much respect we were given, and what an honor it was for us to represent everybody we did to the people of San Mateo.
I agree 100%. It was far different than when I returned from my first tour.
What the people of San Mateo did for us, I think, so far exceeded our expectations. 40 years later, it seems to me like it was yesterday. We were marching down those streets and in the park and eating hot dogs and having kids on our shoulders and just having a great time.
And you think back at that time, as you've mentioned, that to my knowledge, we're the only unit to come back from Vietnam and receive the reception that we did. That makes a huge impression on how you feel about what we did, and especially as you have alluded to, the gratitude that we felt toward the city of San Mateo, its leadership, Linda, everyone. It just gives you goosebumps sometimes.
Well, I think the impact of what the experience of the 4 years from 1968 to 1972 had on me personally had an impact on me wanting to do more in terms of forming America Supporting Americans, which is a nonprofit to support our troops. And this was brought about from our entering a war again with Desert Storm, the first Gulf War. And that's where you came into leading it in the city, in San Mateo, and following pretty much in the footsteps that I had in carrying that mission for those guys. It was September 11th that America Supporting Americans, Norma, as you know, really took off to expanding the adoption and the experience that I had by getting other cities and towns to do what San Mateo has for our troops.
I was overwhelmed by the story, the specialness of it. And Desert Storm was my first introduction to this program and the adoption of Alpha Company. It was just a matter of connecting the community with the soldiers, and everyone was so willing to help.
101st Airborne Division Air Assault is home-based at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Well, it all started back in 2004, as you know, when you contacted the city of Burlingame. We weren't aware of what America Supporting Americans were. We got involved, we had a couple of meetings, and people from the community came in, said they were interested in it, but they didn't know what it was and wanted to know what we could do. And right away after conversations with you, I realized it's really up to us. It's the message from the city of Burlingame and the community to the soldiers. We were able to get the city council right here in Burlingame to formally adopt by resolution Bravo Company. And that was in May of 2004, after you had approached us. They had already returned from the initial invasion into Iraq when we were in conflict with Saddam Hussein. 2004, we brought some soldiers out. We paid for them, we put them up here so that we gave them a taste of California and the hospitality. They carried that message back. They went to a deployment, and that's when the community really came together and donated personal items, snack items, books, magazines, those types of things that we would ship to the soldiers. And every once in a while, we'd receive a reply or a notification back.
In 2007, the town of Hillsborough participated in the Adopt a Unit program, and our unit is H&H Company, which stands for Headquarters and Headquarters Company. And ever since then, we've been participating in it yearly and throughout their deployments. In 2007, after we had the adoption, the residents really came together, and it was a real clear indication that there was a lot of support, obviously, for our troops, but what was unique about it is it gave a chance for our residents to come together as a community and to participate in the program. So we had people from every different political background and every different belief background all lending their support, coming to our station, and working with our officers and the families of our officers to lend their support and send off these packages that we send. It was a unique experience recently to meet up with some of the troops who've actually received some of these packages. And while they were very grateful to receive a small bit of comfort we could send them in some of the supplies that came over, the thing that stuck with them most is the handwritten cards and the sentiments and the feelings that came along with them. And this seemed to be the primary thing that they held closest to them and that they kept with them throughout their deployment. And it was really telling for me at that point to hear them and to really understand that that's what meant the most to them. And it was a very close moment, a very proud moment for me here.
We acknowledge a remarkable 44-year relationship between us and do hereby proclaim our intent to honor this unit in perpetuity. Honored First. Thank you.
Okay, I think we all know that the world of literature has the Three Musketeers, the world of music has the Three Tenors, and the peninsula is blessed with the Three Mayors. So if I get the Three Mayors to please come up to the stage here. So for each we bring from Fort Campbell a framed print from our last combat deployment to Afghanistan. It's entitled The Battle of the Valleys, and it shows brigade soldiers in action in Afghanistan, and that's our destination, as Steve mentioned here in just a little bit. But I'd like you to find a place in your respective city halls where you can sign up. But it's really our way of saying thank you for the great support that we've received from you. So for each of you. I'd like to talk about the Bastogne Brigade, where we are and where we're going. Currently, we're in the middle of our training program in preparation for what we believe will be deployment to Eastern Afghanistan at the end of the year, after about 18 months' time at home to refit and retrain. We believe we will deploy to Eastern Afghanistan again, but the difference is that we expect to deploy with only about half of the brigade, somewhere around 2,000 soldiers, with our main focus being the training of Afghan security forces so they can handle security responsibilities as we draw down U.S. forces in Afghanistan. We will still be required to fight at times, but now the most important mission will be the training of our Afghan partners in the Army, local police, and border police to defend their own country and run it themselves. And this is the final point that I'll make about the brigade. It's manned with great young Americans who have joined the Army in the hopes of making a difference. I am confident that whatever mission we are given, the Bastogne Brigade, this great team of professional soldiers, will perform exceptionally well, mindful of the rich and proud legacy we've been handed and eager to improve upon it. And in the end, we know that when we deploy, we will not deploy alone. That the love of our families, both of our blood and of choice, our adopted communities, will be there to strengthen us and support us as we face the challenges of Afghanistan. Thank you very much.
My last comments tonight are to the men of the 101st Airborne Air Assault. As I review my career, my proudest moments were when I commanded a company in combat. That was my war. We won it in my unit. As you prepare to go back to Afghanistan, I want you to know the legacy of the 101st goes with you, and you must continue to make us proud. This is your time, this is your race, and we will pray for your success. You citizens of San Mateo, Burlingame, Hillsborough, you can make a difference in a soldier's life. Please continue.
weapon and follow me.
Pick up your weapon and follow me.
Airborne infantry.
Airborne